Wilhelm Wundt may be the underachiever's patron saint. He was shy, didn't have many friends as a child, was ridiculed and punished by his teachers, and flunked a year of high school. Yet from the slow start of a daydreaming child, he became one of the most prolific and productive scientists of the 19th century. Wundt represents a dramatic turning point in the study of psychology. He championed both experimental and non-experimental psychology, and more than anyone else, Wundt was responsible for changing psychology from a hobby of philosophy into its own independent science. Wundt's father, Maximilian Wundt, was a minister of the United Evangelical Church. Wundt's mother, Marie Arnold Wundt, was strong-willed and tended to embarrass her wealthier relatives by haggling with the local merchants. School was not a good experience for Wilhelm. The more pressure people put on him, the more he daydreamed. But Wundt's daydreaming was not directionless. The stories were more like fantasy games or mental adventures. There were multiple characters, recurring themes, and they often lasted for several days. When Wundt went to gymnasium, the equivalent of high school, it was highly structured, academically advanced, and very intolerant of Wilhelm's daydreaming. Wundt failed his courses and was forced to return home and start over. He did better on the second trial, but still didn't enjoy it. After high school, Wundt continued his undistinguished academic career at the University of Tübingen. At Christmas 1852, Wundt, age 20, took a train ride home from school. When he got on the train, he was undirected, unorganized, and unsuccessful. When he got off the train, he was a changed person. Instead of daydreaming, Wundt read widely. He wrote poems and studied music and art. He took private math lessons from a local school teacher and transferred to the University of Heidelberg. Wundt went to medical school, finished it in 3 years, graduated summa cum laude, and placed first on the medical board exams. He became the most popular lecturer at the University of Leipzig and spoke without using any notes. He produced a tremendous volume of work, more than Freud, Ribot, or any other major force in psychology. What was it that changed his life so radically? Wouldn't you like to know what happened on the train? So would I. Unfortunately, I don't know. Wundt didn't even explain it in his autobiography. Little is known of this incident in particular or Wundt's personal life in general. Wundt's theory is called volition, will, and that appears to be as good an explanation as any for this radical change. Volition is an act of the mind. For Wundt, all behavior was voluntary, or had been voluntary at one time. According to this view, reflexes available at birth had been voluntary in previous generations, and were passed on to the current generation in a quasi-Lamarckian approach. Volitional acts are the active participation of the mind. They are governed by mental laws, so volition is dynamic, but not the same as free will. Wundt ultimately is a determinist. For Wundt, the goal of psychology was to understand conscious experience. He differentiated between simple and complex mental processes. The goal was to identify the rudimentary elements of thought. Then, having discovered the basics, Wundt hoped to find out how these elements are combined together. Wundt, like many before him, held that there are two aspects to every experience, the object and the experience. Concrete objects exist in and of themselves, but we know them through our experience of them. Objects are external to us, experience is internal. And since experience is an internal representation of an external reality, sensations are objective and feelings are subjective. Wundt said these subjective feelings can be described on 3 dimensions: excitement, calm, pleasure, displeasure, and tension, relaxation. You can find any feeling you have in this 3-dimensional space. But feelings don't have to be single. You're not limited to one feeling at a time. Feelings can be clustered together. These clusters are called compounds. Essentially, a compound is composed of one sensation and one feeling. When feelings cause action, it is called will. So sensations are passively presented, then the mind actively selects portions of the sensations and gives them meaning. Perception of sensations is automatic, but apperception, the giving of meaning, is voluntary. Wundt's intent was to create a new science. He approached the matter from 2 perspectives. First, he established an experimental psychology. Then he developed a non-experimental psychology, what today would be called social psychology or cultural anthropology. Although Wundt clearly intended to integrate the 2 branches, his followers emphasized the experimental branch and ignored Wundt's more global theoretical work. Overall, Wundt's theory hasn't been criticized as much as it has been ignored. Although his theory is loosely knit and covers a broad spectrum of topics, as was true of Piaget and Freud, neither Wundt's theory of volition or his tridimensional theory of emotion have survived. It's not so much that people oppose them, they simply haven't been popular enough to criticize.